Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to take a calm, analytical look at a major reported geopolitical event, an alleged U.S. operation inside Venezuela. What we're going to do is decode the context, the reported events, and, maybe most importantly, the strategic lessons we can all draw from it. So, let's get right into it.
All right, first up, just a quick note. This is purely for educational purposes. We're working off of publicly available reports from a variety of global news sources, and this is in no way an endorsement of political violence. Our focus here is to understand the strategic thinking and the fallout from these reports, not to speculate, but to really focus on the facts as they've been laid out. So let's start with the claim itself, and it's a big one. The core of this story is a report that has sent shockwaves around the world, that U.S. Special Forces actually carried out a direct military operation inside Venezuela, with the primary objective being the capture of its president, Nicolas Maduro.
Now, that is, without a doubt, one of the most explosive and politically charged claims you can make in modern international relations. So the first thing we have to do is ask, where did this story even come from?
The source of all this is really key. These reports first popped up in international media outlets, and they all cited anonymous intelligence sources. These sources didn't just make a vague claim. They described a pretty detailed military raid that was aimed directly at President Maduro. And it is absolutely crucial to remember, these claims are heavily contested. They are officially unconfirmed, which makes this whole topic incredibly sensitive.
So how did we even get here? To understand how a claim like this could even be seen as plausible, we've got to rewind and look at the decades of history that really set the stage for this kind of confrontation.
And you know, almost everything about the story starts with one single, incredibly powerful fact. Venezuela is number one. It has the largest proven oil reserves on the entire planet. And that single reality has shaped its destiny and its relationship with the world for a very, very long time. I mean, just look at this chart. It really puts the scale of Venezuela's resources into perspective. Their reserves are bigger than even giants like Saudi Arabia. This immense natural wealth means that no matter how its economy is doing, Venezuela is always a player of huge strategic importance on the world stage.
But here's the paradox. All that wealth has been paired with a deep, painful crisis. You've had decades of economic mismanagement, a steady consolidation of political power, and that led to a total institutional collapse. The economic disaster that followed sparked one of the biggest migration crises in modern history. And then there's the critical piece of the puzzle. Venezuela strengthened its ties with rivals of the U.S. We're talking Russia, China, and Iran. And that's what turned a tragic domestic situation into a major geopolitical headache for Washington. So in response, the U.S. strategy ramped up over several years. As you can see on this timeline, it really started with broad economic sanctions back in 2017. That then moved to diplomatic isolation. But as the political stalemate in Venezuela just dragged on, the pressure intensified. The fact that these tactics didn't achieve their goals is really the direct lead-up to why reports of more extreme options started to surface. Okay, so now that we have the backstory, let's walk through the timeline of the operation itself, based entirely on what was claimed by those intelligence sources. According to the reports, the way this mission went down was in multiple phases. It allegedly kicked off with a whole lot of surveillance and planning. That was followed by some really detailed prep work, even including rehearsals at mock-up locations. The raid itself was described as this coordinated blitz involving air support, and the end game was that President Maduro and his wife were reportedly taken into custody and then whisked out of the country. Again, these are the details as they were claimed in the report. Now you can probably guess what happened next. An event of this magnitude, even just the report of an event like this, was guaranteed to set off immediate and very strong reactions all over the globe. And the global response split right down the middle, just as you'd expect. On one side, you had some voices in the West who were framing it as a necessary evil, a move for accountability against an authoritarian regime. But on the other side, you had this huge chorus of condemnation from countries like Russia and China, who called it a blatant violation of national sovereignty and a total disregard for international law. This chart here gives you a pretty good snapshot of that divide. You've got a big chunk of nations that flat out condemned the action. Then you have a smaller group offering some cautious support. And then you have a lot of Venezuela's regional neighbors sort of caught in the middle, just calling for everyone to de-escalate and try to find some stability. The ripple effects from something like this are huge, and they spread fast. First, you've got the regional impact. It completely upends the security balance in Latin America.
Then, on a global scale, it sends a really powerful message that major powers might still be willing to use direct force. And of course, economically, it throws massive volatility into the world's energy markets, which goes right back to Venezuela's huge oil reserves. So it's easy to get lost in the what happened, but the real value for us is decoding the so what. What does a case study like this actually teach us about how power works in the 21st century? Well, at its very core, this is a story about the two faces of global influence. You have hard power, that's using force, either military or economic, to make someone do what you want. And then you have soft power, that's persuasion, using diplomacy and cultural attraction to achieve your goals. This whole event is a textbook case of hard power being put on the table after years of sanctions, and soft power were seen as having failed. And that brings us to what is maybe the single biggest strategic signal here. For years, the conversation has been about sanctions, cyber warfare, and proxy conflicts. This reported operation is a pretty stark reminder that old-school military force, that classic hard power, has not gone away. It's just become a much more selective, high-stakes option in the toolbox. But if we zoom out even further, a few bigger lessons really start to emerge. First, power that's used without what's seen as legitimacy often creates way more instability than it solves. Second, complex systems, like a whole country's political structure, tend to adapt a lot faster than the strategies we design to change them. And maybe the most important takeaway of all, these high-level geopolitical chess moves always have profound and long-lasting human consequences on the ground.
And I love this quote because it just nails a universal principle of leadership that goes way beyond geopolitics. Coercion, or force, might get you a result in the short term. But real, sustainable change, that only comes from alignment. The kind of influence you build with trust and shared incentives will always be stronger and last longer than any authority that's just based on pressure. And that's true for nations, it's true for companies, and it's even true in our own career.
So we'll leave you with this question to think about. What does a case like this signal about the future of global intervention? Are the old rules of engagement being rewritten right here, right now, in front of our eyes?
Hey, if you found this kind of breakdown useful for making sense of complex world events, please subscribe to CareerKit Decode. We focus on providing these calm, thoughtful analyses to help you connect the dots on the world's most important stories. Thanks so much for watching.